Now here's a neat find. Woodpecker has been at work. It's probably a pileated.
Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Birding with Bob. I'm Martha Weaver, and I am joined by Bob Holtz, the expert. He's one of our naturalists at Anoka County Parks. He's an adult education specialist, an ornithologist, and a lover of all things birds. Bob, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us again.
My pleasure.
And what we're going to be talking about in this podcast is blackbirds. So let's start out with the basics. I mean, they're a blackbird, but let's talk about some of the characteristics of blackbirds.
The blackbirds are a little harder to pin down as a group.
Okay.
And we're talking here now not just birds that have the word blackbird in their name, but it's a family of birds. And the characteristics they have show up in other birds too. They tend to have dark colors, bodies, but there are other birds that do that too.
Right.
They eat a great variety of things. So if you say something, they eat seeds and grains, well, there are some
Others
other
that do
birds
that
that'll
too.
do that too, yeah. But they do have a few characteristics that are similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are those?
They're usually that dark color, like I said. I guess I actually was getting into your answer already. Those that eat grain are not loved by farmers. My father, we lived on a farm, and my father would pay me to go out to the cornfield late in the season and fire a gun to keep the blackbirds from eating all the corn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and if the members of this family have a cone-shaped bill, then it's a good clue that they're seed eaters.
Okay.
If they have a longer bill, then they have a different variety of foods that they eat.
So describe for us some of the different species. First of all, how many different species are there in the blackbird family?
I think in North America there are 26.
Okay. How about in Minnesota?
In Minnesota we find 12 of them. They're not all common.
Okay.
And then there's another 14 scattered throughout North America
Okay.
that they're.
Describe a few for us.
Well, let's start with the most common, which would be the red-winged blackbird.
Okay.
It's common and it has the word blackbird in its name. So I think most people recognize a male redwing.
Which is the black with the little splash of red on the.
Little red epaulet with a little fine strip of yellow under it.
Yes.
If people look carefully, they'll see that,
Okay.
The female, though, is not very recognizable to most people. This looks like a big sparrow.
Okay.
And when people go on a field trip with me for the first time, or sometimes even the second time, they just don't think of that as a blackbird.
When do they migrate?
The redwings males show up in our area the first couple weeks in March as a rule.
Early.
And they have a whole month roughly without any females around.
So they're just staking their territory at that point?
They're staking their territory. As someone had said, when they're in the marsh at that time of the year, they're not singing, they're swearing at each other. 'Cause it's to establish, like you said, territory, say, this is mine.
Okay.
Now the females come back, then they look around and in large part probably pick the territory they want. The male makes some difference too, but they don't need all of his territory.
Oh.
They just take a piece of it. So he gets 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mates.
Oh, really?
The record is 15. He's a busy bird. And there's pretty good evidence that about a third of all the red-winged blackbirds that hatch out every year were not fathered by the male in that territory.
All right.
And that's good for the species, for variety's sake.
Okay. So that one has blackbird in the name.
Right.
But bobolink, am I saying it right? That one obviously doesn't, it's not a bobolink, it's in the blackbird family.
It's in the family, right. It's a bird that's a little smaller than the redwings. For coloration, it has a black head and a bit of buffy or white color on the back of the head and white on the back. And somebody has said they look like a penguin that's put his suit on backwards.
Oh, okay, that's a good way to remember it.
As far as nesting, they are grassland birds. And with so much of our prairie gone, they have switched to largely nesting in farm hayfields.
Oh, okay. So is their nest near the ground then?
Yep.
And are they building it on the stalk?
Most of the time, I think it's on the ground.
Okay.
I guess I'm not even 100% sure on that one.
Okay.
But the problem is that the first cutting of hay often comes before the young leave the nest.
Oh, no.
So a lot of them don't make it because of that. And the bobolink numbers are way down.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where do they winter?
They head south to South America. They have a long migration pattern. I think mainly Argentina.
Well, you said the bobolink's declining as far as the species. Are there other species of blackbird that are also dwindling in numbers?
It's another grassland bird,
Oh,
the
okay.
eastern meadowlarks. They're a little bit bigger than blackbirds, particularly chunkier. Colored on the back is a brown streaking, yellow front and underneath, and a large black V. And pretty common when I was young, but now again they're not because of the loss of the grassland. 99% of our Minnesota prairies are gone, so you can expect to not see nearly as many as when I was young. I have several friends who either grew up on a farm or visited relatives on a farm when they were little, and that's the one bird they will often ask, where can I find one? It's a nice song to hear and so on.
Now, I've heard that there is a blackbird that has a yellow-headed blackbird. Is that?
Yes, there is, but it's not a Midwest bird, really. It's a Western United States bird, but a few come
here
this far. Yes, even in the marshy areas along Rice Creek here near Warrego Nature Center, they can be found, but not in big numbers.
Okay, what do they eat?
A variety of insects and some of the grains too.
Okay.
Other seeds, imagine.
I was asking you earlier about another bird that has some iridescence similar to a starling, and that's the grackle?
Common grackle, yes, a very iridescent black purplish color. And when I was young, there were two species of grackles,
Okay.
the purple and the bronze. But as we've found out since then that those are just color variations, it's just one species, and we now call it the common grackle.
Okay.
So,
And where do they live?
they're pretty much all over, but they like evergreen trees, actually. And usually in pretty good numbers, too, where you find them. The key there, they are bigger than blackbirds, no red on the shoulder, and with their 4 inches roughly longer than blackbirds, it's in large part because of the extra long tail they have.
Okay.
So people who see a black-colored bird flying by, if you think long tail for the grackle, medium size for the red-winged blackbird, and short for the starling.
Okay.
Starling's not a member of this family, though. It's
Right.
a separate bird.
What I think is interesting about the common grackle, now birds, do they generally fly at night? Because the grackle, they flock in the evening or at night?
You may be talking about the roosting.
Okay.
When they go south for the winter, they'll be scattered, but they'll gather in huge flocks to roost together.
Oh, okay.
And some people have said these flocks may be as big as 1 million birds. So, and because of that, they sometimes run into trouble with people who want to kill them off because there's so many making a mess and quite a racket too.
I would assume so.
Yeah, their song, quotation mark, isn't really a song. It's a lot of squawking and squeaking and harsh calls.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about the cowbird?
Cowbird is a member of this family. The male has a black body with a brown head, so appropriately named brown-headed cowbird. The female's more of a tan or grayish-brown bird. The uniqueness about the cowbirds is the way they nest. They never build a nest, they never take care of their young, and they're a very successful bird.
Huh.
They lay their eggs in other birds' nests. They're known to have been raised by over 200 other species of birds. Most birds don't seem to recognize that it's not their egg.
Okay.
A few do.
What color is the egg?
It's a mottled color, and it's not always the same as looking as the nest with the other egg, but they usually put it in right after there's one egg been laid.
Okay.
And sometimes they even throw out the other bird's egg. But the female can lay 3 dozen eggs a year, so you've got a lot of birds helping them. And they usually put just 1 egg in a nest, sometimes 2. Robins recognize it as not being their egg. They throw the egg out. We have a little yellow warbler that recognizes it's not its egg.
Okay.
but isn't strong enough to throw it out.
Oh.
So it builds another nest on top of it.
Oh.
I once saw 6 yellow warbler nests stacked one on top of another. It means that they were successful in preventing the cowbird from nesting. But they also were unsuccessful themselves, I'm sure, because they spent all summer just building nests. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, orioles, are they a member of the blackbird family?
Yes, they are members
are.
also. The Baltimore oriole, I think, is a bird that people recognize rather readily. About the same size as the red-winged blackbirds. Male has black on the head and back and a very orange body.
Right.
Females more subdued coloration, often no black on the head, or I should even say usually no black on the head. The unique thing about them, I think, is the nest they build. They like tall trees like cottonwoods in which to build a nest, and it's this long hanging basket. And you think about it, it's just amazing. Somebody could give you and me all the material to build that nest, and we'd have 4 hands to work with, and I imagine it would be a mess. Wouldn't even be usable when we got done.
Right.
She builds the thing with just a beak.
Yes.
Doesn't have hands, has to use her feet to hang on while she's working with her beak. It's rather amazing what some birds are able to do.
Huh.
Yeah. And then we have one other oriole, that's the orchard oriole. It is about the same size as the Baltimore oriole. They're not as common, they're maybe a little smaller. And then the male has a black hood, wings and tail. She is much lighter colored, sort of an olive green above, and even pale yellow underneath. So it's quite different looking. And they eat insects and fruits and even flower blossoms.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a few birds that will do that, pick up and eat the flower blossoms. And they go to Mexico, Central America, and even the northern part of South America for the winter. And both of these oriole species we've talked about, they pretty much start packing up by the end of July, early August.
So a lot of them are already on the road.
Right, yeah. A lot of them are gone. And I don't think I've seen an oriole in the last 2 weeks.
Really?
And here we are a little past mid-August.
Yep. Now, would most of these blackbird species be found in the metro area?
If you pick the right habitat,
Right, yeah.
yes. Yeah, because like the yellow-headed blackbirds are, first of all, not too common. And they like a marsh that's fairly good sized with deeper water than what the redwings do.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, are they actually...
It's just the kind of choice they make. Why, I'm not sure.
okay. I mean, because they're not going into the water. They don't need anything to survive that's actually in the water.
No.
Huh.
So,
Interesting. Anything else about the blackbird family that you want us to know in particular?
well, I would say because some of them are so common, like the redwing, for example,
Right.
You can't miss them in the early spring, and they make a good study to see what's happening. You can get fairly close to them and just watch how they operate and set up their territory. That'd be one of the most interesting things to do. So I guess, again, the comment is enjoy the blackbird family.
Thank you so much for your time and your expertise, Bob. We really appreciate it. And we thank you for watching Birding with Bob.